last race of the 2023 season was held at Snetterton on the BRSTC weekend. A great grid of cars and drivers to finish off what has been a very good season for the CMMCS. Lots of fantastic racing, lots of really great memories to look fondly back on when we go to our awards night in January. For the last race of the season would see the Intermarque starting at the front of the grid once more. They'd have a 10-second head start, and they'd have an inverted start to their front pack, which saw Chris Ayling starting on pole position ahead of Mick Robertson, Scott Abrigliano, Colin Smith, Phil Spinks, Richard Smith, Lewis Smith, Baz Johnson, Stephen Phillips, Daniel Smith, John Price and Volker Tim. 10 seconds further back we'd see the Super Saloons with Alex Tidwell starting off the front of Adrian Bradley, and then we'd see Lee Maddox, Paul Watson, Ronan Bradley, Peter Selden, Chris Bassett and Jack Whitehead, ahead of a lot of other TinTops and some Super Saloons from the back of the grid that didn't manage to finish the first race of the day. Again, it was an orderly start from both groups of drivers, but by the end of lap number 1, Lewis Smith had already taken over the lead of the race, and it was up over 4 seconds after a fantastic start. Aprigliano was going well to get into second position, with Ayling initially in third position. Spinks was making some great progress, and he took over the second spot on lap number 4, with Colin Smith following in his wheel tracks. Sidwell led the Super Saloons, and he was pursued by Watson, Adrian Bradley and Maddox. Maddox then demoted Watson on lap number 3, but the BMW fought back on lap number 6 to retake that position. Chris Bassett, who was already crowned as the champion before the final race of the season in the TinTops, did have a small spin on the first lap of the race, which gave him a bit of a challenge to fight through the field, but a fantastic drive would see him make up a number of positions, but he did fall all the way to the back after this spin on the first lap. He would come back all the way to 17th place, overtaking nearly half the grid for a really entertaining watch from trackside. Bicknell and Cripps made some really good progress, also starting from the rear of the grid. The pair were pretty evenly matched throughout and really had a good time tussling through the slower cars. Ronan Bradley and Selden had a really interesting scrap, and it would be the Class B BMW that would just edge out the Class D version by the end of the event. Meanwhile, Sidwell put on another great performance in his V8 Holden to catch and pass a majority of the Intermarques. His progress eventually took him to second place overall, as Lewis Smith was still 24 seconds up the road after another fantastic performance. Colin Smith unfortunately pulled off on lap number 7, as Aprigliano would get past Spinks and get himself into second place within the Intermarques. Richard Smith would then get past Colin Smith on the last lap of the race to demote the Tigra back one more position, and on the last lap of the race it would be senior honours for him once more. Robertson would finish 6th place overall, then would come Adrian Bradley, chased hard by Watson, who was followed equally by Ayling. Chris did a great job and he won the Avon Tyre Silhouette driver of the race. Maddox would complete the top 10, as Ronan Bradley would hold off Selden. Price was next in the Tigra, with Cripps getting the better of Bicknell, although Marcus did win the Drive of the Race award within the Super Saloons in what could possibly be his final race. Jake Whitehead, another great performance in Class C to take the honours, as Chris Bassett would go through the TinTops once more to win the TinTops outright, and he'd eventually make it all the way back to 17th position. Avis caught his Volkswagen Golf onto 2 wheels at Murray's as he came home in 18th, second within Class D, with Birley 19th winning Class A. Paul Restall was next in his Sierra Cosworth. He was finishing in 20th after starting at the back of the grid. Next was Stephen Phillips in his Autocross Fiesta, followed by James Hunt, Graham Richardson, who won Class T1 just ahead of Gideon September. The two drivers swapping around from their performances in the first race, so good to see the two T1 Civics very close out on track. Next up was myself winning Class TP for the second time at Snetterton, ahead of Rick Scalzi, Alex Quashti in 27th position in the Saxo, winning Class T3, ahead of James Seal and Ian Seal, rounding up the finishers in 29th position. Non-classified drivers were Colin Smith in his Ginetta G40 and Baz Johnson in the Pontiac Coupe, both Intermarque Silhouette drivers. Unfortunately, we did have some non-starters too. Within the Intermarques, it would be Daniel Smith, Volker Tim, and also within the Super Saloons and TinTops would have Steve Dan, Barton Scott and Daniel Fisher not starting this last race of the season. So a big thank you to all that were involved for the season finale at Snetterton. Lots of great racing, some really good times throughout the whole of this year. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, be sure to come along to the awards night in January. There will be an email sent out soon with all the details of that, how to get booked on. And hopefully you can join us for what should be a great evening celebrating what has been a really good year and fun year with the CMMCS in 2023. Thank you very much for watching the videos throughout the season as always. It's very much appreciated. It's great to see the club grow throughout the whole season, and hopefully we'll have a very exciting calendar to share with you very shortly for 2024. Thank you for watching the video, and we'll see you soon for more great racing. Goodbye.